Hi everyone, my name's Barclay Loggie, and if this is your first visit, where have you been? Welcome, it's lovely to have you. And today's demo is a basic technique, but it's one that's really, really useful. So in a couple of my previous tutorials, there are a few videos on bezelling a round cabochon or a round crystal. And I've used flat herringbone as a bezelling technique, and I've used right angle weave as a bezelling technique, and a third bezelling technique is peyote stitch. So today you're going to learn how to bezel an oval cabochon. Now this one is 18 millimeters by 13 millimeters across, and when it's bezeled it looks a little like that, and you can see the back is encased as well. So you're creating a little cage so that there's no escape for that bezel. So that's a simple bezel, and you can have them as earrings or as a pendant or as a ring on your finger. But I'm also going to be doing another tutorial where we take it a step further and we take a simple bezel into something a bit more fancy. So this is like a bit more of a vintage style, either a brooch or a pendant or earrings still. They're not as big as they look, but really nice as a pendant. And so there will be a video coming up on that one. So if you want to miss, or if you don't want to miss that one, what am I saying? If you don't want to miss that one, hit that little subscribe button now so that you will get a little notification as to when I upload this one to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, it's free. So enough faff, enough waffle, let's get on with bezelling our oval cabochon. So today we're going to learn how to bezel around an oval shaped cabochon. These are Lunar Soft cabs, and they are 18 millimeters long by 13 millimeters wide. So it's an 18 by 13. And you can choose to keep it simple like this, or you can take it to something a little more fancy. So all the beads that I have used in this design are 2 lots of size 15 seed beads here. I've got light bronze, sparkle light bronze lined crystal. They're very pretty and delicate. I've got Duracoat galvanized matte champagne. Then I've got 2 colors of size 11 seed beads, regular size 11s. This one is the Duracoat galvanized pewter. It's a lovely bronze color and matches in beautifully with the symbol metal elements. And this 11 here is a matte silver lined light blush. Then I've got gem duras. This is here if you're going to take things to a fancier level. This is kind of inspired by the pretty soft pink roses that are blooming in the garden right now. And it can either be an earring or it can be a pendant. And I have a plan to take one of those and turn it into a bracelet too. But for those, I've used these metallic or symbol metal elements, and these are called kipos, K-I-P-O-S. They're gem duro ending, so you can see the holes there, and your gem duro just fits in perfectly there and gives you a really professional finish to your piece. The gem duros I've used, they are backlit, so they definitely have a front and a back. They've got this really pretty soft antique-y feel with a pale pink and yellow, but you can see the back is bright silver, so they very definitely have a front and a back. They are backlit. That silver on the back just allows the light to shine through. And these are backlit pink citrine, so they've got that delicate pink and a bit of a yellow to them, which gives it that vintagey feel. So I'm going to show you how to do the basic bezel in this video, and then there'll be another video where I take it a bit further for you. I've just threaded my needle. Today I'm using the green Wildfire in the 0.006 inch or 0.15 millimeter. And I've threaded 1 meter onto my needle. You can use any size beading needle you wish. I tend to use a 10 because I don't use 15s that often, and I'm only passing through them once, sometimes twice, and the 10 is fine for that. So to bezel our oval cabochon, we're going to use peyote stitch, and it's going to be very similar to bezelling a round, and you're going to start out by picking up 40 of your main color for your bezel. Now, I'm using the galvanized pewter because I like the contrast that it gives to the pink, and it adds to that vintage feel. But you might choose to use a different color entirely. So I'm not going to sit here and count 40 onto my needle with you because that would be terribly boring for you to watch. But I'm going to get 40 of my size 11 beads onto my needle, and then we'll get going. Right, I've got 40 of my size 11 seed beads threaded on. It's important to let you know at this stage as well that you don't need to be using the regular round ones. This will work equally well with your delicas, so the cylinder shaped beads that are cut off top and bottom. And in fact, some would argue that they are far better to use with peyote stitch because of the way they stack together. So make sure you've got 40 on there. You want a nice even number, otherwise it's not going to work. So I have recounted and made sure I've got 40. And I have moved these down towards the end of my thread, and I'm just going to pass up through the beads again. Now you won't be able to do it in one go because it's an awful lot of beads and you don't want to skip any out. So just go through a few and make your way the whole way around the circle. And once you've been through all of them, you'll be able to start doing your peyote. So I'm just going to come all the way around back to where I started here, and I'm going to pass through that very first one where my tail thread is exiting from. Right, I've come back to where I started. You want to leave yourself a sort of a 10 centimeter tail, so a good couple of inches, because you need to be able to weave that away. And to close this circle completely, let's just get my tail thread out of the way there. I'm just going to pass through the first one or first couple, it doesn't really matter. And that is going to close my circle completely. Round one complete, and here's my tail ready to weave away at another stage. Right, round two is when we actually start doing peyote, and we're sticking with the same 11s. So peyote is a case of pick up a bead. I'm going to zoom in for a minute. Right. So I've picked up one of my 11s. You can see where my thread is exiting. I'm going to skip over the very next bead and pass through the next one. That's one done, and you can see how those two sit side by side. So I'm going to do this the whole way around. Pick up a bead, you can see where my thread is exiting. I'm going to skip over the next bead and pass through the very next one. And if you pull your tail thread tight and your working thread tight, you start to get this hopscotch pattern. Hopscotch is a game I used to play as a little girl. So pick up a bead, skip over a bead and pass through a bead. And I will join you when I'm just about to get back to this beginning here, adding in my last bead of round two before I step up into round three. Right, I've only got one more to pick up. So in the first round we picked up 40, and the second round we're picking up half of those, so it's 20. This is my 20th one that I've just picked up. I'm going to skip over a bead, and I'm going to pass through the last one. So the bead that sits just in front of the first sticky outie there. And to step up, you're going to pass through that first bead that you added in round two as well. So we're going to pass through the sticky outie, and that's our step up. Ready, sorry, to start round three. Now, it looks very pretty like that, but it's not actually going to do much good holding my cabochon. We need the bezel to come around the side to trap it. So our third round, we're going to change our hold slightly, and we're going to help the beads so that they start to form that bezel. So it's another round of your size 11 seed beads, and again we're going to be adding 20 in total in this round, but it's a bit easier now because you can see the sticky outies, especially if they lie flat like that. So picked up a bead and I'm going to go straight through the next sticky outie, and as you pull your thread through, you start to pull it onto the side like that so that your bezel is beginning to form. Pick up a bead and straight through the next sticky outie. Pick up a bead and through the next sticky outie. So it's really simple. You're doing the same thing the whole way around. You're doing it 20 times, and I'll come back to you for the step up and the start of round 4. I'm almost back to the beginning. You can see how it's now formed a band. I've got one more to add in. So I'm going to pick up 111 and let's zoom in for this so that you can see the step up. I'm going to go through the 11 that sits just before the first 11 that I added in this round 3, and I'm going to pass through that first 11. So you're passing through on a diagonal slant, and that means you've stepped up and you are ready for round 4. Now it's important every time you pass through to just give that thread a tug. You want your tension quite tight, so that's forming quite a rigid band there. If it's too loose, your cabochon is not going to be held in your bezel. Right, now it's still an odd shape and too big for my cabochon, so we need to bring this sizing in a bit, and we're going to do that by moving down a size of bead. So we're now going to the 15s, and round 4 is going to be 20 in total of your 15s. Now I'm using this sparkle color first, so let's go back in because these are really tiny. So pick up one of your little 15s. You can see where my thread is exiting, and I'm going to pass through the next sticky outie. So it's peyote stitch again, but we've gone down a size, so you can see the little 15 sitting there. I'm going to do that the whole way around, so picking up a bead and then passing through the next sticky outie. And all the while just pulling that thread in so that those little 15s sit just on the inside of your main ring. Almost at the end of round 4, I've got one more little 15 to add. So picking up one 15 and passing through the 11 that sits just in front of the first 15 that I added in this round. Oops, don't want my tail getting caught up in there. And I'm going to step up through that first little 15 that I added in round 4. Now, if you've been pulling your thread through tight, you will see how that round 4 of your 15s has pulled things in a little at the top. But it's still not, if I pop the cabochon in, it's still not going to completely trap it. So I'm going to do a second round, which is round 5 of 15s, but this time I'm going to alternate between my two 15 colors. You don't have to, you can stick with just one. So I'm going to start with the color I've been using, and now I'm passing through all the 15s from round 4. So pick up one, pass through the next 15, then I'm changing color. I'm going to pick up the other color and pass through the next 15. And I'm going to do this the whole way around. Then I go back to my original color and I'm passing through the 15. I'm going to just zoom in quickly so you can see how that's working there. So it's really just pulling in that row of 15s even more so that there's no chance that that cabochon's going to escape. So you're going to go all the way around, and I will come back to you for the start of round 6. Round 5 is our final round. So when we add in our last 15, there's no need to step up. So I'm passing through, now it could be tricky to get in there, the little 15 that sits just ahead of the first 15 that I added into round 5. And as I said, I don't need to step up because that is now the end of my bezel for the top. I still need to bezel around on the underneath to trap my crystal, but for now, that's where I am stopping. So I'm going to turn it over. So that's the side that's got the 15s. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to pop in my crystal. Well, in this case, it's not a crystal, it's a Lunar Soft cab. So I've got the pretty side facing where I've used the 15s, and it's time to trap the underneath. So you need to take your working thread from that top row of 15s down to the underneath, and you're going to do that just by passing straight through the beads in the direction that your thread is going in. You do not want excess thread showing. So I'm just following the path of the bead. Sorry, there you go. I forgot it was on Zoom. And then you will be ready to start your peyote bezel on the underneath. Now we really need to try and trap this cabochon completely. So we're going to do 2 more rounds, round 6 and 7, and we're going to just be using the 15s, and we're going to be pulling it in the whole way, exactly the same as we did on the top with peyote stitch. So we're going to pick up 1. Now I've changed direction because I'm doing the other side. I'm going to skip over the next bead and pass through the next 11-0. All the while just holding that cabochon in place so it's resting on the fingers on my left hand while I bead with my right, and I'm just making sure that I'm pulling that bezel in around my cabochon as I go. So a round of 15s peyote style all the way around, and then we'll be doing round 7. I've just added my last 15 of row 6 or round 6 in, and it's still not secure. We have another round to go, so another round of 15s, and there's no need to change the color this time because it's on the back, so it's not going to be visible. And this time, once you've stepped up through the first 15 you added in round 6, you're going to pick up 1 15 at a time. Don't get your tail caught. And each time you're going to give that thread an extra bit of a tug to ensure that the bezel is closing and starting to really encase that cab. So a row of 20 in total of your 15s all the way round. And then we're going to do a round 8, but it's not going to involve picking up any more beads. In round 8, we're going to just pass through all the little 15s that we added in round 7, and that will really tighten things up for you. I'm hoping that you can see on camera, I've just come all the way around for round 7. I've still got to do my round 8, but I'm hoping that you can see how the bezeling is now enveloping that cab a little better. So there's the front side with as much of the surface area visible as possible. And on the back, it really doesn't matter. You can keep going till you've bezeled the entire back if you want, but it's not necessary, and you will use a lot more beads. So for round 8, we are just going to pass our needle through the little 15s that we added in round 7. Now you might get lucky and be able to pass through a couple at a time. But if you can't, and you've got to do them one by one, just do them one by one the whole way around, pulling on your thread as you go. So you're really tightening up that last round that you created with your 15s. So you're going to do that the whole way around, and then we'll be ending off our stitches. But all the while just pulling in that thread so that it's nice and tight and that cab doesn't stand a chance of escaping. If when you've been through all your beads from round 7, just passing the needle through them without adding any more, if you're still a little perturbed and worried that your cabochon is going to fall out, please just do another row of your size 15s and pulling in tighter and tighter, but that is pretty secure now. You can see how it's a really neat bezel around the edge of the cabochon. So I have threaded my needle onto my tail thread now, and I'm going to show you how to end off a thread. So I can see that my thread is coming out. In fact, it'd probably be better on the zoom, but I might have to rearrange my hands. There we go. So I'm going to pass through a couple of beads, always going through the beads because you don't want any thread showing. So I'm passing through a couple of beads. It's getting tight in those holes now. Need a bit of extra help with my pliers. And you're basically going to be tying the thread up in its own knot within the beads. So when you get to a stage like this, you could go straight across the intersection there and bead back to yourself like I'm going to do. So I'm changing direction and I'm coming back towards myself. And by changing direction, you're confusing that thread. It's not sure which way to unravel if it tries to. And I'm going to continue going that way and through a couple more, but each time passing through the beads so there's no extra thread showing on the outside. I'm going to change direction once more. And if you only come through one, that's fine. If you go through two, that's also fine. And I'm going to go back up. So instead of tying actual knots that you can easily snip off when you snip a thread, you've just created a little maze through the beads, and that thread is not going to come undone. So at this stage, you can, let's just go back a bit, you can zap your thread off. And you would do, if you were leaving the bezel as that, as a simple bezel without any embellishment or work around the edges, you would end off your working thread too. So that's the simple bezel, and I'm going to bring the other one back into shot so you can see how just doing something a little extra makes it that much more special. So that's your bezelling using peyote stitch of an 18 by 13 millimeter oval. There it is. And as I mentioned, I'm going to create a new video showing you how to take it to this beautiful vintage style that can be used as a brooch, as a pendant, or as earrings. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. If you don't want to miss out on when the next one is listed, please just hit the little subscribe button. I hate that word because when you subscribe to something, it means you hand over money. But that's not the case on YouTube. It's free. So you hit the subscribe button, doesn't cost you a penny, and the next time a new tutorial, for example this one, is loaded up, you will get a little notification saying there's something new to watch. Thank you so much for your time, and if you have any questions, as usual, just pop them in the comments and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can.